Sixers fans, how we feeling out there? Hey y'all, my name is Lauren Gordon. Some of you may already know me on social media as Lauren Fan of the Year. Others may have just stumbled upon this podcast, but either way, I want to first thank all of you for tuning in to Season 2, Episode 7 of my very first podcast. I'm just a Sixers fan, the Lauren Fan of the Year story. Now let's continue the story. Y'all, the time is now November of 2020. Joe Biden just won the presidential election, beating out Donald Trump. And I don't think it was officially called until like that Saturday after Election Day, because remember, they were still counting the mail-in ballots. And y'all remember when Trump said bad things happened in Philadelphia? Well, this is the timeline. Well, on November 10th, the new Sixers City Edition jersey was released, and it was the Black Boathouse Row jersey. I wasn't crazy about this jersey. I don't know if it's true or not, but I think I heard that Ben Simmons actually designed that jersey, or he had some kind of influence on the design. I liked the fact that it was a black jersey, but I was like, dang, can we just bring back the Black Iverson era jerseys, the ones we wore in the 2001 NBA Finals? That's the jersey that all the fans are waiting for. Y'all, on November 12th, I participated on a Sixers town hall call with new President of Operations, Daryl Morey, and the town hall was hosted by the legendary Mark Zumoff. And I was able to ask my question, what are the similarities in the play style of Yao Ming and Joel Embiid, but also how do they differ? I thought this was a really good question, considering Joel Embiid and Yao Ming are both talented, highly skilled 7-foot NBA players. And Yao Ming was with the Houston Rockets when Daryl Morey was the general manager. Yao Ming would go on to be a Hall of Famer. And I remember because I was in Springfield when he was inducted. I told y'all back in season 1 of this podcast that I attended the NBA Hall of Fame ceremony for Iverson. Yao Ming, Shaquille O'Neal, and Sheryl Swoop were also a part of that induction class. So during the virtual Sixers town hall, a video played of me asking the question about the similarity and contrast between Embiid and Yao Ming. To be honest, I can't even remember what Daryl Morey's response was. Y'all, I was just excited that my question was selected. Y'all, what was great about that town hall experience was that it occurred on the eve of my Fan of the Year reign. I couldn't believe it had already been a year. And the winner of the 2020 Fan-Sided Fan of the Year award was Arlene Hartman of Asbury Park, New Jersey. I believe at the time she was an 80-year-old Pittsburgh Steelers fan. God bless her. I was absolutely thrilled that it was back-to-back female winners because, y'all, representation matters. And in sports, not just as athletes, but representation as the sports fan. Because, y'all, women love sports. Even though Arlene Hartman is from Asbury, New Jersey, she won as a Pittsburgh Steelers fan. And I had won as a Philadelphia 76ers fan. That just goes to show how big sports are in Pennsylvania. So y'all, this was the end of my first year as Fan of the Year. And people always ask, do I give up the title after my reign? And my response is always, hell no. It's like being the president. You never lose that title. On November 17th, Tobias Harris got engaged to his girlfriend, Jasmine Winton. He had shared some photos on his social media of the proposal, and it was absolutely gorgeous. And I was thinking, if I got married again, this is how I want to be proposed to. But I was so happy for Tobias and Jasmine. Tobias is a good dude on and off the court. And remember, Embiid had just became a father just a few weeks ago. And I felt like a proud auntie. I was happy for my guys. Then on November 18th, we traded Al Horford, a first and second round pick, to Oklahoma City for Danny Green. I was like, good, because y'all, I never liked Al Horford. To me, he was a Celtic in a Sixers uniform. Now, I did like that Danny Green, the Green Ranger. Oh, I was happy to have another shooter. And it definitely helped to have veteran leadership on this team. Embiid and Simmons were both the face of the franchise, but they were both young, and neither one of them were ready to step into the leadership role. Then, y'all, it was the 2020 NBA draft. And this draft was a little unconventional because, remember, we're still in a pandemic and we were still under shutdown orders. And with our first round 21st pick, the Philadelphia 76ers selected Tyrese Maxey. Now, y'all, I knew nothing about Maxey. I had a Facebook friend who goes by the name DeMario who reached out to me right away and said, Lauren, this Maxey kid is for real. He's a good player from Kentucky and he's going to be really, really good. DeMario kept sending me highlight videos and adding notes like, watch, you're going to like him a lot. I told DeMario, I don't really follow college basketball like that, so I appreciated him tagging me in all the highlight reels of Tyrese Maxey, and I was like, he looks okay. I mean, I always think being a good player in college doesn't always translate to the NBA, so unless he's a phenom, it's hard for me to get excited about a college basketball player until I actually see them play in an NBA uniform. But I told DeMario, I'll keep an open mind about, what's his name again? Tyrese Maxey? The next day, November 19th, I woke up to a text message that we traded Josh Richardson and the 36th pick to the Dallas Mavericks in return for Seth Curry. Yes, we got ourselves a Curry. Now, don't get me wrong, Seth is no Steph, but the man can still shoot. He's a Curry. All of them can shoot. Even their father, Del Curry, who was a former NBA player, who's actually a part of my generation. Overall, I was thrilled. We kept Ben and Joe, and we now surrounded them with shooters. I was also excited for Tobias for the upcoming year. Because aside from him being recently engaged, I was looking forward to seeing how he would play under our new coach, Doc Rivers. But remember, Tobias used to play for Doc with the Los Angeles Clippers. And it was reported that at the time, Tobias had his best numbers playing under Doc. It was still speculated that Ben Simmons would be moved. But I did hear that at the time, Ben had reached out to the township to have an addition built to his home in New Jersey. And I thought, Ben's not going anywhere. He's settling in. Ben was my point guard, y'all. Then Dwight Howard was a free agent with the Los Angeles Lakers. And on November 20th, he signed a one-year deal with us. I was excited because Dwight Howard is a rebounding machine. Have y'all seen Dwight Howard's arms? Have y'all seen his shoulders? Oh my God, they're huge. And we needed a strong backup center behind Embiid. So now we had the veteran presence of not only Danny Green, but we also had Dwight Howard, We desperately needed this leadership. The conversations surrounding whether or not Ben and Joe could play together were growing. On November 24th, Daryl Morey said during an interview with 97.5 The Fanatic, quote, "We got to get rid of that noise. We love Ben and Joel. Fans went through the process for those two players. Why would we try and ship them out?" End quote. At the time, this was very reassuring to me. I was thrilled that we were able to keep both Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid. During this time, I was able to turn my new house into a home. And for the first time in my life, I could do everything I wanted to do and nothing that I didn't want to do. My divorce would soon be finalized, and Larry and I had been together for 30 years, and we were married for 25 years. I had always imagined us being married forever, but it didn't work out. And I think it's okay for two people to want to grow in two different directions. We all have one life to live. Everyone deserves to be happy and live the life that they want for themselves. I was proud of what we were able to accomplish. 4 beautiful children who are now happy, healthy, successful adults and positive contributors to society. I'd have to say overall, Larry and I did a good job as parents, and we're both very proud of our children. I am completely grateful for my marriage. And at the same time, I was looking forward to this next chapter of my life. I could just focus on myself and learn who I am as a person. It was all about me and, of course, my dog Murphy, my Shih Tzu poodle fur baby. I love decorating my new home. I got a new living room set and a new dining room set, and I had to order everything online because, remember, we're still in a pandemic and everything was still shut down. So most of the stores were either closed or it was pickup only. And I remember there being very limited inventory, and that's because there was a backup with distribution and there were delivery delays, but I was able to find furniture that fit my style and my budget. Every room in my home reflected me, and it was nice to surround myself with things that I loved. Because remember, y'all, up until just a couple years prior, I had never lived on my own. I had moved in with Larry when I was 19 years old, and prior to that, I lived at home with my mom. I never went away to college. This was my first taste of independence and living on my own. And in a way, it was kind of scary because I was no longer renting. I was now a new homeowner, which meant I was responsible for everything. I didn't have anyone to rely on. I couldn't rely on Larry. I had to figure everything out on my own. It was scary, but at the same time, y'all, it was liberating. I love decorating and have a knack for organization and an eye for colors and textures. And y'all, I had a clean palette to work with. I was excited to turn a spare bedroom into a glam closet, which was totally out of necessity. I have a century home, which basically means it's over 100 years old. And y'all, the closets in the bedrooms were small, like really small. So it made sense to make one of the spare bedrooms a closet. I made the other spare bedroom my home office and art studio. And this made sense because I now had a dedicated workspace and I had enough room to display all of my art supplies, an area to paint, and I could display all of my paintings on the walls. And yes, y'all, I love to paint. It's one of those things I enjoy doing to relax. I mostly do oil paintings on canvas, but I will paint anything. I also enjoy painting rocks. Painting is just another way for me to express my creativity. But y'all, the spare room I was most excited to decorate was my Sixers room. It started off with me hanging my Allen Iverson fathead on the back wall. On the opposite wall, I hung my big screen television to watch the game. I put my glass curio cabinet in the corner where I proudly displayed my Fan of the Year award under a spotlight. I added a huge garment rack where I displayed my Sixers jerseys and sweatshirts. And I'm going to say, y'all, current day, I have well over 100 jerseys and sweatshirts. And I added a drawer that neatly displayed all of my Sixers t-shirts. Real quick, fast forward to current day, y'all, I would say I have close to 200 Sixers t-shirts. It just got to a point where I stopped counting. And I added 2 shelving units to display my bobbleheads and other memorabilia. I hung photos of me on the wall, a lot of them with players over the years, and other photos of me just having amazing fan experiences. I hung red curtains on the window. And then, y'all, I finally purchased my glass bar. I also purchased 4 bar stools that had the Sixers logo on the seat. Now, I know I told y'all that inventory was low because of the pandemic, but listen, I was able to find those Sixers bar stools. Y'all, I am a great decorator, but I hate putting stuff together. I am the absolute worst. I think it's because I'm impatient and I hate reading instructions. Well, one night I was putting my bar together and I was getting a little frustrated because, y'all, no exaggeration, there had to been like 1 million pieces to this bar. And there were parts and screws everywhere. And my daughter, Corey, the one who lived across the street, called to check on me. And I told her I was getting frustrated with putting together the bar. And y'all, she came right over and together we figured that joint out. And this was a reminder to me that I have serious issues with asking for help. So I'm glad she reached out. Corey and I took our time and we assembled that bar and all 4 bar stools. And we were so proud of ourselves. Then she even climbed the ladder for me and hung my little LED lights around the ceiling, which framed the room. And the lights would intermittently change from red to blue. And y'all, as I stood in the middle of my Sixers room, I thought, wow, it's all coming together. I was creating something special. The only thing that was left for me to do was to stock my bar. On December 8th, the idea of James Harden possibly landing in Philadelphia was being floated around. All-star James Harden was, at the time, playing for the Houston Rockets, and he was not happy there. Remember, he was wearing that fat suit? Well, he wanted out of Houston. And if y'all remember, he had a really good relationship with our new president of basketball operations, Daryl Morey. They had developed a strong relationship when Daryl Morey was the general manager for the Houston Rockets. At the time, it looked like it could potentially happen. Adrian Wojnarowski tweeted, "Teams would be reluctant to give up the asset required to get a player of Harden's caliber without confidence that he would be willing to remain long-term. Few contenders have ability to furnish Houston with the combination of assets that it's seeking to consider dealing Harden." Adrian Wojnarowski also tweeted, "James Harden has recently indicated to Houston he'd be open to a trade to Philadelphia or other contenders. So far, no substantive talks with Sixers. Daryl Morey's been adamant he wants to keep his 2 young stars." Fast forward, James Harden would end up with the Brooklyn Nets with Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving. But at the time, y'all, I liked Harden, but I didn't want Ben on the trade block. Daryl Morey did say that he was adamant about keeping both Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid. Then Doc Rivers, our new head coach, weighed in, about the conversations and rumors about trading Ben Simmons. And it says here, quote, "You're not hearing them from us, so as long as you're not hearing them from us, you should be very comfortable," end quote, Rivers told Sixers reporters via ESPN. Quote, "We like our team, man. I tell you, that team I just watched out there is pretty special. And so those rumors, none are coming from us," end quote. Then I saw that there was a way for us to get James Harden from Houston and still keep Ben, but it would be in exchange for Tobias Harris, Furkan Korkmaz, Shake Milton, Tyrese Maxey, and some future picks. I had Tobias's name down, but remember, Tobias had that big ass contract with us, and I couldn't imagine any team, let alone the Houston Rockets, taking on this contract. And DeMario reached out and was like, "No, Lauren, you do not want to get rid of Tyrese Maxey. We have to keep Maxey. I'm telling you, he's going to be good for our future." I wanted Harden, but I also wanted to keep Ben. I question if they could even play together. I mean, they are both point guards, really, really good point guards, but they both needed the ball in their hands. But I figured if we got Harden, we could make him the point. And Ben was so talented that I guess we could have really played him at any position. On December 19th, we waived Justin Anderson. Remember him? His nickname was Simba. And then on New Year's Eve, December 31st, 2020, we played the Orlando Magic. We ended up winning that game, and I believe Ben actually made another three-pointer. Joel Embiid had a double-double, 21 points and 9 rebounds in 3 quarters. And I believe we gave the Orlando Magic their first loss of the season with a 116-92 victory. It was nice to end our last game of the year with a win. Now that is how you close out an unforgettable and historic year. Goodbye, 2020. It was the most challenging and difficult year of my entire life. That one year felt like an entire decade. I was so looking forward to the year 2021. Thanks for tuning in, y'all. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and share. And be sure to tune in next weekend as we continue the story.